Well, here we are again, the Bridport Walking Track up in the Wildflower Reserve. About to start the second part of our journey back into the past around Bridport. As we walk and ride around the Wildflower Reserve and Foreshore tracks, we will show you some of the special moments you might enjoy, as well as stepping back in time to see just how much has changed in the last 120 years. Taken from the unmade section of Richard Street in the 1950s, we can see a much different river mouth and far fewer houses. The best time to enjoy the Wildflower Walking Track is probably springtime. The view out to Double Sandy Point, with a profusion of flowering plants, is stunning. Don't forget to stop and explore closely to see nature at work. At its northern end, the track slopes down to meet tracks heading to Adams Beach and Frog Lagoon. This shady section of the track is a welcome reprieve from the brilliant sunshine. Early morning walks often reveal an abundance of wildlife. Signage all around the tracks give interesting information on plants, environment and history. Listen for the warning sounds of the black cockatoo as they search for grubs in dead trees. The track to Adams Beach often brings rewards. If you are game, take a shortcut through the bush to Frog Lagoon. You might get a surprise if you are quiet. Adams Beach, named after the family that once owned nearby Umtali, is popular for dog walkers and swimming. It is hard to believe just how much the vegetation has changed at Adams Beach in the last 70 years. If you want to get away from the hustle and bustle of Bridport, then a stroll along to Little Forester River is in order. Despite it being an off-the-lead dog beach, if you are observant and lucky, you might get to see the tiny red-capped plover. This one was trying to lure me away from the nest. Returning from Adams Beach, we often see the tiny white eyes feeding on berries. We take a pause at the lookout to see if there's anything of interest. This is one of my favourite bird watching sites. Depending on the weather, you can see seagulls and pelicans gliding past, or on windy days, the magnificent gannets playing the winds and diving for fish. It's always worth pausing at this spot to watch what might be passing by. We now start to follow the walking track as it follows the coastline, initially using Bentley Street. Over the years, taking this little offshoot to get sea views has been rewarded with surprising encounters. One year, an unexpected visitor was caught sunbaking on the rocks. Interesting, because in the early 1800s, Bridport was home to a group of sealers. In fact, one of them, Robert Rhodes, helped build the earliest house in the area, bowwood. At another popular viewing area along Bentley Street, I had another lucky encounter. Twice a year, between May to June and later September to December, migrating whales pass Bridport on their journey between Antarctica and the Great Australian Bight. Sometimes stopping in Anderson Bay to feed and refuel, these baleen whales take huge mouthfuls of water and small schoolfish. The water is squeezed out through the baleen plates or bristles inside the mouth, but retaining the fish. On their return journey, the whales are accompanied by their offspring, who, like all young, like to frolic. Further along Bentley Street, we take a detour off track down to the shoreline to explore rocks and rock pools. This part of the coastline is geologically interesting. The main rocks are Devonian granite diorite, 300 to 400 million years old, and the Mathina sandstone, 400 to 480 million years old. The granodiorite intrudes into the sandstone deep underground. The dark areas are xenoliths or rock fragments. Rock pools formed by erosion along contact zones are filled with interesting marine life. Sea anemones in a variety of colours, often called by children bloodsuckers. Also slow-moving sea slugs. The shoreline is well worth a visit, offering a rich variety of patterns, textures and colours for the observant photographer. Differential weathering produces interesting shapes. Moving along Bentley Street, we approach an area known as Granite Rise, and an interesting story. Once a magnificent holiday home that would not have been out of place on the French Riviera, it was built in the 1930s and was then the only house in that area. We take a detour down Rolling McCormick's track and head for Mermaid's Pool. This dead tree is sometimes a sea eagle roosting site, and one year I struck it lucky. Interesting to see how open the views were in 1912, possibly because of bushfires in the early years. Descending over Mermaid's Pool, we can make a comparison between present and the past in the early 1900s. Despite being a popular swimming spot for people, there is still plenty of wildlife here, especially early in the morning. The walking track signage is well worth a read if you are interested in the district's human and natural history. We will spend a little time at Mermaid's Pool to enjoy some summertime activities. Here we pause to step back into Bridport's past, when in the early 1900s things started to happen in the town. The building of the Granite Point Jetty by the North East Harbour Trust in 1916 was primarily to allow the Tas Timber Company's Foreshore sawmill to export blackwood and hardwood to mainland markets. A 27-kilometre tramway was built from the Foreshore mill to Bridport, and 2 small steam locomotives shuttled back and forth to cart the sawn timber to sailing ships like the Rara. The jetty was also intended to act as a cargo port, and small steamers like the SS Tambar transported cargo to and from Bridport, including house cows. In 1917, after a number of attempts, the Barnett boys managed to hook, shoot and capture 2 large sharks from the jetty. Charles and Asunto Barnett had come to Bridport in 1912 with their 13 children. Charlie helped install machinery in the Foreshore sawmill and later acted as the jetty harbour master. In 1912, he bought one of the first blocks of land in Bentley Street and built a house there. In 1922, Charlie and Asunto built and opened a guest house, which later became a hotel. It still operates as a hotel in Bridport today. Returning to the history sign at the old pier, we see the Murphy family enjoying holidays on Murphy's Beach opposite their house. Dorothy Claridge recounted how her father had urged the children to get buckets of water to try and extinguish the old pier, which somebody had set fire to. They succeeded for a while, but it was relit a number of times and eventually burnt down. In the 1980s, this was one of the most popular beaches in Bridport, but it is changing. The pier is still popular and was the site of the pier centenary celebrations in 2017. It is one of the most photographed icons in Dorset. Scene of some spectacular sights. From the old pier, we ride our bikes on the track that follows the old timber company's tramway. Arriving at Mattingly's Beach, we take another step back in time. The sign and photographs show how in 1926 the Scottsdale Tourism and Progress Association, with the help of local volunteers, cut the present track to give access to the beaches. Each beach had its own change rooms and some had toilets. These beaches were named after the families whose holiday homes were directly behind the beach. Unfortunately, man-made structures are having a detrimental effect on the Bridport foreshore and beaches. Camping has always been popular along the Bridport foreshore, but camping has certainly changed from tent city to caravans and now demountable shacks. The band rotunda and outdoor dancing sites have disappeared, along with the social interactions that they fostered. Croquet Lawn Beach has some interesting stories to tell, from the building of the Croquet Lawn in the 1930s to the Sailing Club regattas in the 1980s. Bridport has always had a strong community spirit to get things done. There was much fun and action at the Bridport Sailing Club's regattas at Croquet Lawn Beach in the 1980s. Although the Sailing Club has gone, others have made use of our stunning environment to promote health and well-being. At the southern end of Croquet Lawn Beach, we come across another interesting story, that of the first timber company's pier and its demise. This is where the tramway initially ended at the angled Croquet Lawn Pier, built in 1913. Until recently, parts of the old pier remained. The pier was angled at the end in an endeavour to reach deeper water. In May 1913, the train brought down 80 tonnes of timber on 8 bogies. Some of the timber was blackwood to be made into billiard tables. On the 15th of March 1915, the train brought down a boisterous crowd to watch the Bridport sports. A large crowd enjoyed a picnic atmosphere on the beach. The pier lasted only 3 years. Vessels had difficulty in rough weather, and the locally used hardwood was attacked by the teredo worm. The company agreed to move its operation to a new pier to be built at Granite Point. Beautiful bump here. It's alright, keep going. Eastman's Beach has always been popular. Even before the walking track had been built, it was busy during the summer holidays. The beach has changed little in over 100 years. This old black and white movie, taken in the 1930s, shows just how popular the beach was. Change rooms had been erected for both men and women, and nearby Elephant Rock was always a challenge for kids. We are also fortunate in having a colour movie of the regatta held on the beach in 1947. Nothing like having a tug of war in your suit and hat. As we ride along to Grafton's Beach, it is interesting to compare the vegetation in 1926 with the same area today. Grafton's Beach has changed significantly since the river was dredged in 1988. Sand has built up against the retaining wall and a large area reclaimed. However, the beach is still popular for large aquatic events, including the first Bridport Triathlon and events held by the Bridport Lifesaving Club. The village green was always the centre of Bridport's events, and today, as in the past, it supports a variety of sporting and challenging activities. Bridport Lions Club initiatives and the Dorset Council have made this a premier family-friendly site.
You reckon?
I reckon more than I reckon anything else.
Mind you, there's so many ropes in there, you'd be lucky to fall, wouldn't you?
The park now caters for all ages. The Village Green in 2024 hosting the Lions Club Show and Shine event. Note how it compares with the same area in 1973. In 1988, efforts were made to improve the access to the Bridport port. Rock retaining walls were built and the river dredged, filling up the area behind the rock walls. This significantly changed the estuary, creating land now used for parking and picnic facilities. History signs in the area give a more detailed account of the changes to the estuary. In 2024, serious consideration is being given to block off the current river entrance and cut a new one further up the estuary. Like the beaches, the estuary is a favourite destination for holiday makers, jet skis, paddlers and shallow sheltered spots for swimming. It can also look spectacular in the last light of the day. "10 days on the island in 2007 saw the estuary transformed into a garden of sea flowers with a kayak ballet at night. Later performances were held as part of the Scallop Fiesta. How different this area was in the early 1900s. Crask's jetty and cargo shed at Smythe's Corner and the police station far right. Despite the many rocks in the estuary, it was still a sheltered harbour for boats. We are about to come to a very strategic place in early Bridport. It was here that the police station was built, to monitor the only place on the coast road where you could cross the river at low tide. Unfortunately, in 1876, Martin Rourke, a policeman, drowned while crossing the river 70 yards further upstream. This was also where the Launceston and Bridport Shipping Company built a jetty and storage shed. Frank Crask was the agent, and the jetty became known as Crask's Jetty. The shed was built to store goods being shipped out of Bridport. When the railway to Scottsdale closed the port in the 1890s, it was used as a dance room until it fell into disrepair. For a short time in the 1920s, a footbridge crossed the river here, but it was soon pulled down. In the 1940s, the Barnett family built fishing boats for the cooter industry. Bully Barnett launched a few boats just here. The cooter were cleaned and stored in a cool room nearby. In those days, a branch of the river ran close to the road. In 1947, Bill Lovegrove was cleaning up the foreshore in this area. "62 years later, in 2009, Steve Millwood was also helping improve the foreshore by constructing new walkways and erecting solar panel lights, an idea of Roger and Wendy McLennan's. At the same time, with the assistance of government grants, new historical and environmental signs were being upgraded. A huge crowd walked along the new tracks to open the new signs. These signs included information on Dada Nilsson, a retired lighthouse keeper, birds of the foreshore, and Tasmanian Aborigines, who were the first inhabitants of Bridport. The last few signs tell about the early days of Bridport, when in the 1880s Bridport was a bustling port, shipping tin and timber to Launceston and landing Chinese and European miners and their supplies for the tin fields at Branxholme and Derby. The sign at the start of the walking track tells of the very first hotel in Bridport, up on the hill just across the bridge, run by Captain William Henry Jones. This is a fitting place to end our journey around the Bridport Walking Track, where I hope you have learned more of the history of our amazing seaside town.